doing today? This is Ryan over at Stealth, technical educator with Stealth Products. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Stealth joysticks and the switches and the sensors offered by Stealth. So we're going to jump into it real quick here. Today's list of topics is going to include the mushroom joystick, the precision mini proportional joystick or PMPJ, our switches, mechanical switches, and our sensors, including the iConnect line that we do offer through Stealth. So starting out, we do offer the Stealth Mushroom joystick. It's the very first joystick Stealth Products designed as a company. It's been out for a number of years now, and to me it seems to be making a comeback. It's a really unique joystick. You've got some really unique mechanical configurations to it in the joystick world, so it does, in essence, amplify your range of motion on those limited end users. One of the nice things about it is it will reduce the force required to move it. It does have roughly the standard throw force as a normal joystick, but it feels like a lot less when you're using it correctly. So the idea behind it is you can rest your palm on that slick platform on top and really use gross motor movements and gross motor skills to move that joystick. You don't need those fine skills to get this thing to work for you. So the ball topper, we've got two versions, a small and a large. The standard is going to be large. So if you want the small, you do need to specify that. But it's really designed to fit the contour of the hand. You don't need pincer grasping or anything like that. You just palmar grasp and drop a palm on there. You don't need very much dexterity to do so, if at all any, and you can control that joystick very well. The other nice thing about it is if you're stuck in a fisted position, you can still control this joystick. The only downside to it is you'll have to reach up and over the front side to get into a reverse typically. But it works really well for those guys with limited dexterity and hard to place hands, basically. So just drop right on that ball. The platform we use is specifically designed to drop the wrist on and let that wrist rest on that platform. We want that user to not have to focus on steadying the arm and shoulder and elbow joints. We'd rather them relax that wrist and again move those gross motor movements to get this joystick where they need it to go. That being said, we do use a slick plate on the top of it. It's aluminum and it's pretty slick. The reason behind that is, again, we're resting a wrist on it, we're resting a palm on it. We want them to be able to move without friction and without resistance. As far as the specs go, again, it's close to a normal joystick throw force and a normal throw distance. So it's about 227 gram force to move it and roughly 19 millimeters of a throw distance at about 18 degrees. So that's really close to what the standard joystick through Quantum, Arnett, and most manufacturers. That's roughly the standard specs on those joysticks. They're typically in the neighborhood of 225 to 250 with a 19 millimeter throw. But again, that configuration of this joystick makes that force feel much, much less. When you do get to relax your hand on there and use those large movements, large muscle groups, it feels like you're moving a very light throw joystick. It is on the heavy side for joysticks. The overall mass is about 930 grams, but that typically is not a factor. Compatibilities, we do work with most of the electronics, if not all the electronics you're going to run across out there these days. We are able to tap into the bus cables and bus systems of some of the older stuff like the Mark 6 electronics and things like that. But we do offer the 9-pin version as well, the DB9 connection. So you can just put it on anything with the DB9. As far as mounting goes, we do have several options here. We've got a fixed mount that still gives you quite a bit of adjustability. We've got another version of that fixed mount that swings away, same amount of adjustability, but gives you the option to swing out of the way for transfers and ADLs and things like that. And then we do offer it on the Gatlin. All of these also have several rod diameter availabilities. So if you do have a clamp that's a certain diameter, we should be able to match that. The MJM 260 series would be our Gatlin series for the mushroom. So it's a pretty robust here. So you've got that robust joystick with a robust mount. So we do have some clients using this in place of a heavy duty in this configuration. The mount holds up, the joystick holds up, and we don't need to go to that complete heavy duty joystick in those cases. So it's a pretty unique configuration this way. You can do a lot of cool things with it. And like I said, take care of those clients who typically would need a heavy duty joystick. The 250 series is going to be our standard mounting hardware. This is a fixed mounting hardware. You do mount off of the arm here, so it'll be laterally. You can't really get very much midline out of this hardware, but you do still have a lot of adjustability with it. So you do have depth adjustability. So height technically be more like height adjustability, so you can raise up and down on that rod. You can adjust fore and aft with the mount itself. And you've got about 360 degrees rotation and 40 degrees you can swivel on that ball there. On the top side, on the back of the joystick itself, you have another swivel ball mount there. So you do have quite a bit of adjustability, just doesn't swing out of the way. The 250 series is going to basically be the exact same thing, but now we incorporate a swing away mechanism. So this will let you swing it out to the side, down to the bottom, however you configure this joystick and mount it. So again, it's not going to offer much in the way of midline. You can move somewhat midline, but it's not going to get you a true midline in most cases. So the 250 is pretty nice. Again, you get 30 degrees of tilt, you get depth, you get rotation. On the joystick itself, there's a ball mount, but you do have the ability to swing up to 100 degrees away. And as far as mounting goes, we do have a couple of nice configurations here. We could do switches off the side of that joystick. The other thing I see it more and more as lately is a foot control. It works really great as a foot control joystick. It's a little more intuitive in certain applications than those gas pedal style foot controls that are out there on the market currently. This one, we do have the ability to mount in a foot plate. We can cut a hole in the foot plate, provided that the foot plate is big enough, and mount this joystick in it. Outside of doing it that way, typically people are just getting creative and coming up with mounts that way. We don't have a standard. Just mount it to the foot plate type of, specifically for the joystick itself. Without cutting that hole in the foot plate, that's the only thing we've got. Then this moves us on to the Precision Mini Proportional Joystick, or PMPJ. So PMPJ is a pretty nice joystick. This will be the second one that we've done at Stealth all on our own. It's really precise and robust. If you'll notice, the housing is a nice metal housing. So it will stand up to some abuse here. It's really designed to be a small joystick that you can put just about anywhere and still be successful with it. It'll work on the hands, it'll work on the chin, it'll work on the lip. It works really well just about wherever you want to use it. So the gimbal itself was originally designed as a gaming device, and it was to be used as a thumb drive. So it gives it a very unique feel as well. We've got two versions of it. We've got the ID PMP-9, and that's a 9-pin version with the DB9 on the end. And then we've got the ID PMP-1. The -1 is ready to use with iDrive. Plugs straight into the iDrive. You get all of the benefits of iDrive, all the programmability and things like that, with a true proportional joystick. What's really nice with that is we get to isolate forward and reverse, or isolate left and right axes. on the ID PMP-1 through the iDrive electronics, and that'll let you really build a custom driver control and build what that client needs, which is pretty cool. As far as the handles or the toppers that we offer, we've got 3 versions that we do offer. Both ID PMP-9 and -1 have the same 3 offerings. So we've got the grip topper, we've got the cone topper, and we've got the tip. A quick note on these, currently they're non-replaceable. We get these in basically what you see in the picture here. When we assemble it, it's already, the gimbal itself already has the boot and the topper pre-installed from our vendor. We're currently working to get the topper itself as an orderable item. We're hopefully very close to doing that. The last word I got was just we were waiting on our vendor to get us the supplies to do that. So hopefully in the very, very near future, we'll have a good update for you there. So again, the ID PMP-1 will allow you to drive in a single axis or dual axis control. So you're going to build that custom driver control for the end user and build what they need and not fit them to what you have. So again, 2 versions. DB9 is going to be the -9 version. iDrive Connections is -1. Either one of these is going to be standard of 43 gram force and roughly 9.5 to 14.5 throw distance. So this really depends on the topper you get. The toppers are significantly different heights overall. So that's where we get the 9.5 up to 14.5 millimeter throw. Throw angle is a pretty large angle for a joystick of this size. It is a 25-degree angle, but that also means when we go in and calibrate this joystick, we can really fine tune it because we've got a lot of room to play there. So it works out really nice. Fits in a lot of diagnoses. So it's pretty cool. The other thing I do want to mention before I talk about mounts is this joystick, the housing of it is sealed. There are 2 open holes on the bottom, but once you bolt it in, it's a sealed joystick. So if you have somebody who's got a lot of moisture issues and you're using it as chin and they have a lot of salivation going on, it's a pretty good joystick. It's going to hold up to moisture getting on it fairly well. That's not to say it'll probably handle getting dunked in a bucket of water, but somebody who does have salivation issues, that would be a good option for them. As far as mounts go, though, we do have a chin rod. So this SM670 specific to the PMPJ, and it'll mount off of pretty much any of our headrest systems. Every single one of our headrests, we can add a swing away to, and it can be one of these SM670s. So we can add this chin rod to any of them, swing away 100 degrees. We've got quite a bit of adjustability on the rod itself and the mount. We also have ARMS 260 version. So again, you get all the adjustability you had on the mushroom version of it. This time it's for the PMPJ. We do have a rod that'll get you more midline on this one, or we can do custom sized rods. You can cut it to length. And with all of our rods, the idea here is you get your final fit and adjustment, leave yourself a little bit of room to readjust as needed, but cut that excess. So like this picture here, the way this rod is mounted in that clamp, that rod's going to be sticking out and making the chair significantly wider. The idea would be, let's chop that extra off, trim it down, smooth it out, put the rubber cap back on there, and just remember, leave yourself a little bit of room to play so you can reposition as needed over time. The mounts themselves, though, we've got some nice mounts. We've got a Gatlin version as well. In the Gatlin, we've got a fixed mount and a 360-degree mount. So ARMS 260 and SM670 both have a fixed mount. You've got 360 degrees rotation on the rod, but then the joystick itself, we can rotate the forward direction in an arc that's about a 38-degree arc. So we do get to play with that forward direction a little bit, So if your position on your Gatlin, your SM670s, if you can't get that perfectly at a 90 parallel to that end user, you do have a little bit of room to play on the mount itself and get directly forward. Now the 360-degree version is really nice. We've got multiple 360-degree points of adjustment here. So we can go 360 degrees on the rod itself of the Gatlin. We can go 360 degrees on the top half of the mount. And then where the joystick actually bolts into this mount, we have another 360 degrees we can rotate. So this 360-degree mount really lets us fine-tune the positioning in that joystick and put it exactly where we need it. The other really great offering we have here is iDrive control harness. PMPJ does mount very nicely to the control harness. You do have height, depth, lateral adjustability, angle adjustments, all kinds of crazy adjustments on this control harness. Multiple sizes of harnesses, so we should have something for just about everybody here. Now on the harness itself, what's great about it, especially in power chair situations when you have recline built into the chair, you're going to have a shear reduction plate or mechanism in that chair. If you're using the chin boom mounted off of the headrest, typically by the time you get into full recline, your joystick's going to have traveled up towards your forehead. With the control harness, what's great about it is the control harness stays with the end user. Chin rods coming off a headrest stays with the chair. So end users can move around, they can reposition, and it's not totally dependent on their position in the chair. It's totally dependent on the position of the harness on the person. So it's a little more forgiving. What's nice about our chin harness, if you guys haven't seen it before, is we do have a swivel mechanism on the bottom of those links. So they can, when they're not driving the chair, have an attendant move that joystick out of the way. They can feed, drink, talk to somebody without having a joystick right on their chin. The other nice thing is if that chin harness doesn't get on exactly the same as it did the previous day, just loosen that swivel, reposition that joystick where it's needed, tighten it down, and it's just a little thumb swivel to do that. The other great thing we can do with the PMPJ is we can mount it in trays. So we can do it in a palm tray like we have here. The picture is a little different than what we'd be offering today. So basically, instead of drilling exactly one little hole for the PMPJ, we're going to have a large hole all the way across the top of the tray. So you can slide this thing around and really fine-tune the positioning where you need it. We can also do it in the Eclipse tray as well. So plenty of options here on the PMPJ. And then that'll move us to switches. So we do offer a pretty wide range of switches. So hopefully you will have something for just about any situation for you. So we do have an egg switch, a microlight, a mini cup, and we still carry a wobble switch. So egg switch, we've got 5 colors. It's about 100 grams of activation force. So you do have to mean it when you hit it. It's about a 0.6 millimeter activation distance. So it does require a little bit of a movement to actually activate it. It is sealed, so it'll hold up to dirt and debris and food spillage on it without much penetration at all. And you can't activate it from any point on that switch as long as you're pressing down on it. Pressing laterally across it's not going to do anything, but pressing down at any point on the switch does activate it. As far as mounts go, though, we do have a wide range of mounts here. So we have the STL611, which is a universal mount, and is a really good mount to put just about anywhere on a chair. You can really fine-tune the position of the egg switch itself here, and then just run your cable where you need it. We do have a Gatlin-specific egg switch mount. So that's going to be the second picture to the left, or from the left. And this is nice. It goes straight on the Gatlin rod, and you can fine-tune the position on the Gatlin rod. It's just not going to lift it very far off that rod. We do have a ring mount. And then we do have an ARMS 260 version as well, so we can mount that egg switch off of just about any of those SM rods, or SU rods, sorry. Moves us on to the microlight switch, the ML200. It's just about a 10-gram activation force, but it really feels like next to nothing. And 10 grams is from the hinge side. On the opposite side, the far end of it, we've got about a 7mm activation distance, but when we go to that hinged side, as soon as you touch it, it's pretty much going to activate it. It's a fairly small target area though, and activation occurs on the far end with pretty much any downward movement. You do get some tactile and a little bit of auditory feedback. Where the egg switch, you do get a lot of tactile and plenty of auditory feedback. This one's not going to be nearly as loud when you click it. Most of the noise is going to be that top lever actually slapping down and hitting the other half of the switch. The inside the switch itself doesn't make very much noise. It is going to come with some stick-on color tabs, so you can change the color of it. It's not always going to have to be black and silver. You can put a green, red, silver, yellow, or blue sticker on it. And it does come with a piece of closed cell foam as well, so it's not just plastic on that person's skin. As far as mounting goes, we've got a flex rod, and we do have a Gatlin mount for it as well, which would incorporate a flex rod. So we could put these two rods, again, just about anywhere you need. And again, you could always Velcro this just about anywhere you want it. So it's a pretty versatile switch. It is a light switch too. It's about the lightest switch we've got until we go to sensors. So the mini cup is a pretty good switch. It's a really, really small switch. It's a 130-gram activation force. We've got about a 3mm target area, 19mm target area with 3mm activation distance. So 19mm is pretty small. We can put it in just about anywhere it needs to go, and still have a mechanical switch function there. On this switch though, activation of it is a downward press, and it occurs pretty much anywhere you press it. And you do get some, again, tactile and auditory feedback here. We don't have very many mounts for the mini cup, just by the nature of the mini cup itself. It doesn't lend itself to mounting building mounting hardware for it. We can do some Velcro, put it wherever you want, or we can mount it in a pad. So we've got a pad here on the slide. It's embedded in that pad, covered in foam, and as soon as you squish down into the foam, it trips the switch. So that works really well. We can also do it for things like cervical extension inhibit on a head array. So if you have somebody who, let's say due to their diagnosis, if they hit rough terrain, that would elicit tone response. So they're going to bury into the headrest. Using the mini cup, we can counteract that. So as soon as they bury into that tone or into that headrest, it would click that mini cup and stop the output of that head array. And then they can relax and start driving again. So it works really well with that. But the applications of it, you can put it pretty much anywhere on the chair. Then this brings us to the wobble switch. It's 132-gram activation force. It's about a 38mm activation distance. Again, auditory tactile feedback. And we do have a mount for it that's a pretty nice mount. You can do quite a bit with just this mount. So it's a pretty nice switch. People seem to forget about the wobble switch. It does a lot of cool things, but we still do offer it. And that'll move us along to sensors. So we do offer proximity sensors. We have some that work directly with iDrive, and as we'll see here in just a second, when we get to the iConnect line, we've got some that function as mechanical switches as well. So the proximity sensor is pretty nice. It was really built for industrial use, and the wheelchair world has adapted it to our needs. So the way it works is it detects anything with dielectric different from atmosphere. So anything conductive, basically. So if you drop a bottle of water onto a proximity sensor, it will activate. If you drop anything, basically anything conductive, it'll activate that switch. Nice thing about it is it's nice and small and compact. You only have one cable running to it in most cases, so it's easy to fit and install just about anywhere you need it. So IDH 501 is going to be a single iDrive proximity sensor. It's going to have that iDrive connection there. Your sensing distance is technically 0 to about 7.5 millimeters. So 7.5 millimeters is when it's mechanically maxed out. We got to remember too, when we start putting it in things like pads and head arrays and things like that, that foam is eating up some of that sensing distance. So by the time you really dial it down so you don't get false activations, taking into account all the pads and things, we're really looking at about less than a centimeter activation range. So it's really not going to be very far. So mounting this, we could do it in 900 pads, we could do it in Eclipse trays, we can really put it just about anywhere you want to do. Fiber optic sensors are another offering from Stealth. Great thing about these is they are so tiny you can really put them in any position you want. You put them super close together or pretty far apart. The nice thing with these sensors is they're not affected by electromagnetic interference like some of the other things there. They don't conduct any electricity. It's just truly a hollow fiber tube, and it shoots light out, and the other one brings light back in. So you do get a visible red laser, but there's no other feedback other than that. Where the proximity sensor, you have zero feedback except for the fact that a chair hopefully is responding. As far as fiber optic sensors go, we've got an IDH 510 or an IDH 503. Those are going to be iDrive ready. You can plug them directly into the iDrive. You've got a maximum sensing distance of roughly 9 centimeters, and that is tunable or programmable. So you can go in and fine tune that sensing distance. You can set it to be light on, dark on, and light on basically means you break the beam and it reacts, or you unbreak the beam so it reacts when it's not broken. So it's kind of equatable to an open or closed situation on a mechanical switch. And then we also have an IDH 502, and this is going to be a photoelectric sensor. So the idea here was originally, it's iDrive ready. This is going to be mounted to the back of an iDrive head array, and it's really what it's intended to do is stop the output of the iDrive if you fall away from your head array. So I have talked to a few of our local reps here in the U.S. that have used something similar to this that on patients with narcolepsy, with severe narcolepsy, and they would just fall asleep out of the blue, and this would allow them to do that. They could fall asleep and not have the fear of the chair taken off on them if they accidentally fell over and hit a pad or hit a joystick or something like that. Now in our iConnect line, what's really great about iConnect is this is going to give the ability to provide mechanical function in a situation where it's not typically available. So you can use different types of switches or sensors, and they're going to function as a mechanical switch. You basically take a sensor and end up with a mono jack output. Power is not necessarily needed at that switch site. What's nice here is if let's say you're using this on a manual chair or a chair that needs to be powered off, but you still need a sensor. So maybe they need to power the chair on with a sensor. You don't have a mechanical switch that they can physically reliably use, this would give you the ability to use that sensor in that place. So anytime there's not power, but you need a sensor instead of just a mechanical switch, this is a great option. So we've got multiple versions here. We've got iConnect Fiber Optic. We've got a couple of versions of this iConnect Fiber Optic. So we've got the IC12F-1. It's going to be a 12-volt version. We also have the IC24F-1, and that's going to be a 24-volt version. The difference between the two, 12-volt is going to be plugged into a battery pack, and we can use this thing on things outside of a power chair. So if you need a fiber optic, a sensor with a mechanical function on, say, a manual chair for one reason or another, maybe a communication device, this would give them that option. Just plug it into a battery pack. You've got on-off switch, and you can program it as they need it. Then you've got a fiber optic that terminates into an 1/8-inch mono jack. We also have iConnect proximities. So proximity switches are the same switch we use in iDrive. We're just going to have a different end on it to plug into the iConnect boxes. We got 4 versions of this. So we've got 2 12-volt versions. One's going to come with a single proximity. One's going to come with 2 proximity sensors. We also have the 24-volt version. Again, 12-volt version would be if you're on, say, a communication device, you're in a manual chair and you need that function. 24-volt version, we're going to be tapping into the power sources from the power chair itself. And then we get into the iConnect Sip and Puff. What's really cool about this iConnect Sip and Puff is, number one, it does not require a power source. And number 2, it works great in building hybrid driving controls. So if you notice in the picture here, we have a Sip and Puff straw, we've got the Sip and Puff module, and then we terminate out into 2 1/8-inch mono jacks. So those mono jacks, one side is going to be for positive pressure, one side is going to be for negative pressure. What's cool with this is we don't need to teach them differences between hard and soft or anything like that. There's no calibration. We just need to know they can feel around the straw and they can give a positive and a negative pressure. And what this allows us to do is build really cool hybrid driving controls. So it works great as a Sip and Puff head array combo, and it's almost 0 education time. You can almost drop the person in and turn them loose without even telling them how to drive it. Of course, you're going to want to do a little education, but it's super easy, super intuitive this way. And again, it also functions on those things like communication devices and manual chairs when you need that mechanical function but can't operate mechanical switches. On the iConnect line, some power sources we do have. We've got a 12-volt power source, which is going to be the battery pack you see up in the top left corner. We also have a 12-volt wall charger, so you can plug into a wall. And again, if you're on that communication device, you're going to be parked at a desk for several hours. The battery pack may not suffice, so we do have a 12-volt wall adapter. And then we do have 24-volt power sources for QLogic, for RNet, and for Mark 6 systems. The QLogic version is going to plug into the PTO harness, the power takeoff harness, and the RNet and Mark 6 version is going to plug directly into the bus system. So options for most of the most popular stuff out there. And that brings us to the end. So that's pretty much all of our offerings for switches and sensors and stealth manufactured joysticks. So feel free to give me an email, a call, whatever you need to do if you have questions. We'll be posting this webinar online very soon, so you guys can go back and watch it again or shoot it over to someone who missed out on it today. But that's all I got for you. So appreciate your time, and just as always, let us know if you have questions.